First of all, I just wanted to ask you about your career in the grassroots. You've obviously come up through Pencoed and you've come back to Bridgend, and I know you were watching a local club recently. How important is the grassroots to you?
Well, I think it's important as to me as everybody who still plays it, because it's where I come from. You know, no rugby player is born and plays for Wales straight away. They have to go through the system, and the system of where you learn the game is grassroots. And you know, the grassroots is very different now to when I played, because when I played there was a rule that whatever youth team you played for, because they developed you, then you had to have a year at that senior club. You want, like Nice, Bridgend were interested in me when I left youth, but Pencoed said, no, we've developed you as a player, we want you for a year. And that year, I probably learned more in that 1 year than I did in my whole career, because, you know, when you play a grassroots rugby, you learn about what rugby is about. You know, there's nothing fancy about it. It's very hardcore, just basic rugby. And to me, it's what moulded me into the player, but more importantly, into the person on the field that I became. I owe everything to Pencoed. I owe everything from the age I started playing at 7 till the time they released me at 17, and then I went to play on for Wales at 18. So, you know, when you look at that, if I was playing at Wales at 18, yet I started there at 6, and I left there at 17. I didn't progress in 1 year. I progressed in them years out at the club, and enabled me to carry on to play for Wales.
What are your feelings about Pencoed? We know they're celebrating 125 years this year, which is a big milestone for them. But they are suffering in terms of the financial side of the business.
Yeah, I think every team kind of, well, underneath the national team really, is struggling financially, and you know, no more so than the clubs like Pencoed. And you know, it's sad to see, because it almost, you know, rugby is dictating now through all levels of the game, and you know, players will only play for like £10 or £15, and you know, we had a little bit of boot money when I played, but the fact I could represent Pencoed and the fact I'd come through the system and was able to represent them meant a lot more than the £10 boot money I had. So, you know, finances are killing a lot of grassroots rugby.
Do you think, in this day and age, you mentioned you came up through the ranks and you went on through Pencoed to Bridgend to Wales. Is that the way things are today? I mean, most youngsters are getting picked up and playing for regional academies. Can they still come through the clubs?
Well, I think this trouble with the system, I think today, is that most, you know, prospective talent sometimes isn't playing, and I think that's the problem. You know, as a kid growing up, all I wanted to do was play rugby. If I played 2 games a day, I was happy. I wanted more. Now they're kind of told at a young age exactly what they have to eat, exactly what they have to train, how they sleep. Kind of take in the education that you learn yourself, how to eat, how to sleep, how to train, how to play, kind of taking it away, and you know, taking what I think is magical about Welsh rugby, and the fact that, you know, when you look back at the 70s and the great times, and even now, the guys play, you know, they just go out there and play. And I think when you take that freedom of choice away from someone, then you take that freedom to play away. So I think, you know, my concern is that, you know, kids are taken at a young age and told they have to go somewhere, told they have to go there. They have no identity with the team, therefore they have no passion for the team. And sometimes that shows in the way they play, and the way they perform, and the way they progress.
Is there a way to get that back, or is that gone forever?
You know, I think it's probably gone forever, in the fact, you know, I'm very much of the old school. You know, I lived in Bridgend, so I wanted to play for Bridgend, and when I played for Bridgend, then, you know, I gave everything for it, because it's the town that moulded me. And obviously the regional rugby came in, and then you lost identity, and you know, you go to the places, you know, like Pontypool, Pontypridd, you know, Ebbw Vale, Abertillery, Bridgend, you know, and kind of from what it used to be, they're now kind of like ghosts. So, you know, the times have, I suppose, changed a lot since when regional rugby has come in and taken that away. And, you know, my passion was that, but obviously finances and the union state that, you know, that type of game and that type of scenario is no longer possible. My concern, if it's not possible, well, help whatever division these teams in and whatever, you know, whatever state they're in, help them out.
Obviously, as usual in Welsh rugby, politics off the field are playing somewhat in the public domain. You're no stranger to that. Obviously, we all remember the Scrum 5 appearance. What is your take on the current situation politically in Welsh rugby?
Well, you know, my take on it is like everybody else. I think it's like as clear as mud. You know, there's so much going on, yet nobody really is willing to say exactly what's going on, because you're hearing different stories all the time. And that's my concern, because you know what, there's a lot more supporters in Wales than there are players. So, you know, you need to kind of, for rugby to get back on its feet, you need a good support base, you need a good fan base. Therefore, you need to know why people are paying money week in, week out to go and watch a game. You know, what players they're going to see. You know, rather than seeing different players coming in from different regions because they're not wanted week in, week out. So you want an identity. And I think that's the main thing that's been lost, is the identity of who you're supporting and who you're going to watch week in, week out.
A lot of the players these days are going over to France to play. Is that something that's inevitable? Does it benefit the game, or is it just a question of money?
Well, you know, I can't stand here and say that, you know, it's anything bad because I did it, and I did it, and you know, it was probably the best 4 years of my professional rugby career, because I learned so much and I stepped outside of my comfort zone. You know, and the thing is, everybody, you know, I did it a long time ago, and the thing is, everybody's saying now about players going. Well, really, when we look at the state of Welsh rugby, you know, then you wonder, you know, why there ain't more going. They're lucky to keep the ones that they've kind of got, I suppose. But I truly think as a national game, it benefits our national game, because the players like Jamie Roberts, Dan Lydias, Luke Charteris, James Hook, you know, when those guys come back from France to training camp with Wales, they bring something different to the squad. They bring a new kind of attitude, a different way of playing, and even though they have to play the style like Warren Gatland wants them to, there's still something different, and it's nice to have different. And you know, if you keep doing the same thing, like the national team is seeing now, if you keep doing the same thing, then sometime people are going to catch up with it. So it's nice to have injections of different things. I think by players going away and playing, that's what they bring to the game, the national game.
Obviously, you mentioned about the fans coming out to watch the teams. How can we get fans coming out to watch more of, say, the grassroots teams, especially with the players going abroad?
I think, you know, well, that's probably the $1 million question, because where I don't understand is when I played for Pencoy first, and we had a good support base, from then until now, where in the game has that support base been lost? You know, where has the interest fallen off? And I think that's the $1 million question, I think, for the union to try and answer, because it's, you know, I could probably run the Welsh Rugby Union and play X amount of games in the stadium and fill it up and put concerts in there and make money for the national game or for the national team and the Millennium Stadium. You know, just add more games, it's simple. But I think the tough job is to find out the reasoning why right at the very bottom, you know, the game is being lost, you know, and I'd love to be able to answer that question, but you know, I think that's something that just needs to be looked at and worked at right from the very bottom.
Who do you think is the right man to take the union forward? Are you a Roger Lewis fan?
Do you know what? I'm a fan of Roger Lewis, because I like him as a bloke. You know, I like him as a person. So it's hard to differentiate sometimes. And Roger's been very good to me, and he's been a very good person to me. But you know what? I think outside of running the Welsh team, then somebody who's probably, I think, you know, come from grassroots, has come through and understands every level all the way to the top. The national game and Roger Lewis can look after themselves. But somebody who's been there understands what it's like to stand on the touchline, you know, when one man and his dog is watching, or understands what it's like to play when one man and his dog is watching, all the way through. So, you know, I think, for me, like somebody, like an ex-player who's been there, done that, and understands what it is, and more than anything, cares about the game, you know, rather than just sees it as a business, cares about the game and cares about the people who are standing on the side and the people who are playing.
Are the union open to that kind of person, do you feel?
I feel they should be open to some. If there's somebody out there who's willing to do it, then, you know, I feel they should be, because, you know, I do, like most people who are good at their jobs have come through some way, you know. People don't, like I said, you don't wake up and they're able to play for Wales, and you don't wake up as a boss of a company. Usually you have to work your way through, and the best bosses I've ever spoken to, and the best leaders I've ever spoken to, have started at the bottom, and then they've reached the top, and they understand every step on the way. So everybody who's underneath them, they understand.
Well, there's no one perhaps more well suited to the role than perhaps yourself. Is it something
no, I'm
you
not.
Consider? No?
No. No. Do you know what, mate? No. I have a trust me, I have enough to do. I have more than enough on my plate at the moment. But you know what? It's something I care about. It's something that hurts me when I go to Pencoed or I go down Bridgend, or I go down to watch the Ath play Newbridge. You know, Newbridge was like one of the famous teams of Wales, and I went down to watch them on the weekend. It was, you know, a sparse crowd, and everybody in the crowd, all they were doing were complaining about the state of Welsh rugby. And you just think, man, where has this gone wrong? Like, you know, instead of talking about, well, a great try, a great pass, a great this, a great that, everything was down. And everything was down because rugby in Wales at that level is down.
Are the clubs doing enough to help themselves?
You know, yeah, because people I speak to, you know, these people work for a living and they dedicate the rest of their life to helping out in the club. From the people who cook the food, you know, from the people who cut the grass, the people who stand on the gate, the people who go around with the raffles and making money, and just kit sponsors, everything. I think the people are doing probably more than what's expected, because the game's in such a lull that if they weren't trying, then they'd be almost non-existent.
With someone like David Moffat coming over, I mean, we've spoken to your former teammate David James, who didn't have too many good words to say about him. Do you think his impetus is actually stirring up the debate somewhat? Is that a good thing? Well,
mate, yeah, you know, I do. Again, you know, like I say, as a person, I like him because, you know, he closed the Warriors down, and there'll always be a political reason for something. But I see people on one side as a person and the second side as their job. And as a person, you know what? He's a good guy, but what he done obviously down there then means in this area he's not, you know, he's not very well liked. But at least he's coming in and he's raising the question. You know, he's putting people on their toes. He's not letting us just say, everybody sit back and say, oh, you know, I wish somebody would stand up and do something about this. He's actually standing up and doing something. My only hope is that if, you know, what his plans are and his dreams are, if he gets the position that he wants to get to, then he does it. Because, you know, this is like on a political level. And it's quite often politicians make a lot of promises and they never actually deliver.
Last question, just about the show. Obviously, you know a little bit about the programme. This is designed to have an open debate about the situation in Welsh rugby, but also to promote the grassroots game, something you're really clearly passionate about.
God, yeah.
How important do you think it is to the grassroots clubs that something like this does exist?
Well, I think it's important that this exists because it shows grass rugby exists. You know, grassroots rugby is still there. And we need to promote it, because anything that's promoted automatically gives it a wider audience, and grassroots rugby needs a wider audience and needs more of an interest. Therefore, people, by taking interest, may decide to get up and go and have a look, or may decide, well, do you know what, there is a problem, so I'll go and help, I'll go and support, I'll do something. So I think it's, you know, it's massively, massively important that not only the people who work hard, the people who play, the people who help run the game at the grassroots level get the, you know, get the accolades they deserve, but also kind of get the acknowledgement of what they're doing.
Do you understand, though, the union stance towards us that we need to pay for rights because that's part of their package they have to sell to the BBC?
Yeah, again, mate, you know, I understand it. My only thing with I've never really understood the fine line between business and rugby, because, you know, I played rugby because I loved it, not because it was a business. And there's obviously people who run it as a business, and they see it as a business venture that is obviously negative to them, or is taking something away from them. But actually, as a rugby venture, if you're looking on rugby terms, really, what harm are you doing?